Hello, I'm Scott with Small Worlds Big Adventures, building community through gaming. Today we're going to be going over one of my gamekeeper tips. We'll be discussing the Dungeons & Dragons 5e Adventuring Day. 5th edition is designed around 6 to 8 medium to hard encounters in a day. What constitutes an encounter isn't necessarily combat. Anything that we use up some resources that the party can't get back in that day should apply, such as perhaps getting past a locked door or crossing a raging river. Anything that could use up hit points, hit dice, spell slots, magical item that has charges or one-time use will count towards these encounters. In an adventuring day, the party will be expected to use up usually 2 short rests, which will get back some of their resources. It'll allow them to heal hit dice. Some classes will get spell slots back or limited use resources. This will help them to solve the challenges that they encounter through the rest of the day. The hope is that if you're building up to a hard encounter, they can't save all of their most powerful stuff for just that encounter, thus trivializing even a deadly combat encounter, say at the end of the dungeon, or if they face off against a big boss. Usually when designing a day of encounters, I will throw in a mix of easy to hard encounters. Depending on your party size, you may have to make that either a little bit easier or a little bit harder. If you have less than 4 people, you're probably looking for more easy encounters and medium encounters. If you've got more than 4 people, you certainly need more hard and even deadly encounters. The group that I currently run has 7, and a deadly encounter, if it's only 1 or 2 in a day, can easily be steamrolled by the group. Maybe 1 or 2 people get knocked down, but there's so many characters that almost doesn't matter. When planning out combat encounters in 5e, you should figure on 3 rounds. Combats that go longer than that tend to be pretty rare. Combats that are shorter than that are also rare, but not as uncommon, which means if you want something important to have been done, you need to plan on it having been done in the first couple of rounds of that combat, and the 3rd round is usually going to be cleaning up. If you find that you're running into encounters that aren't challenging the players or using up resources, my advice would be to have a couple of random encounters planned out ahead of time so that you can pepper them in with time permitting in your adventure. That way the characters can still feel properly challenged through the day, rather than just that they steamrolled everything that you threw at them and didn't have any problems. Because of the way the dice work, usually this isn't as big an issue, but it is always a good idea to plan ahead. When planning out what types of challenges the players are going to encounter through the day, I like to start with a fairly hard one as kind of a jumping off point, then kind of build up through the day until the last either 1 or the last 2 are going to be the hardest encounters that they have through that day. Sometimes that won't be easy to do. Sometimes narratively that's impossible, but that's generally my preference in order to help build tension through that day.
What is a favorite encounter that you have designed?
My favorite encounter that I've designed is Rose's Peril. It is when the adventurers come along a patch of trail on the side of a steep hill that has been washed out by a sudden
Landslide?
Well, a sudden waterfall across the flood. A sudden flood down the hillside that a traveling merchant has been stuck in. His horse, named Rose, and his cart are stuck halfway through, and the players have to figure out how to get the horse either across or back, as the flood is obviously increasing and more logs and sticks are coming down. Not far off the path that the flood is going to is a cliff that's about 40 feet that will obviously kill the horse and destroy the merchant's stuff. This is a better challenge for a low level 1 through 3, because higher than that you generally have abilities and powers that will make the encounter trivial. Linking into the encounter, once you've either saved or not saved Rose, the merchant will usually give a reward of a healing potion or something. And then you find out the players may be interested, then the players may be interested in where the flood is actually coming from. And what I usually have is at the top of the hill a pond that has been disrupted by some sort of elemental. And then they can either fight or drive off the elemental to stop the flood that is washing out the trail below.
What is an encounter that you planned that did not go how you expected?
An encounter that I planned that didn't go as expected was the characters were breaking into a necromancer's outpost, and it was designed as two separate encounters. So there was the breaking in and encountering the skeletons and zombies on the bottom floor, and then further up the tower was a death knight and some more zombies and skeletons. And halfway through the fight, one of the characters decided they wanted to run up the stairs, and I didn't have much choice between either removing whatever was up above or reducing it, or having the characters encounter two encounters together, which is what I chose to do and nearly wiped the party.
Is there a favorite day of adventures or encounters that you have built out?
One of my favorite days of encounters that I planned out was one where the characters were investigating an ancient ruined temple. And when they got there, they could see a giant turtle person fighting against ambushers, but it was behind an impenetrable dome that they would later find out that the turtle had raised so that there couldn't be more reinforcements from the enemies, but the adventurers also couldn't get to it. So this one was designed that they could go wherever in the temple and investigate in whichever order they wanted to until they got enough clues to be able to open up the dome and then rescue the turtle. It ended up playing out really well. I had a couple of random encounters that I could pepper in wherever I needed to either spice up an investigation that was going slow, or to help with the flow of difficulty through the game, either an easy one after a hard one, or a hard one building up towards the final fights after an easy one.
What is the most frustrating things players do to ruin your encounters?
As a gamekeeper, sometimes it may feel frustrating when a player comes up with a novel solution to a problem that you've set and perhaps you've planned a whole encounter or combat around, but it becomes very hard not to say, well, yeah, that probably works. And the important thing to remember as a gamekeeper is you're not the adversary. You're not playing a game where you are one side and they are the other. You're a narrator. You're trying to craft the best story you can within the rules that you, the game, and your players set. So when a player comes up with a novel solution to an encounter, it's almost always best to reward that. Even if it's going to shorten a day, or even if it's your big bad almost outright losing before he even gets to do anything, sometimes that tends to be the best story that you and your players have come up with. For more Gamekeeper tips and other game resources, please follow us at Small Worlds Big Adventures.